Reverend Ralph Rivers, and his title is Clayton. Clayton, Ralph Rivers.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. It's been my credo in life to understand that no matter what you do it well. Do it with gusto. Do it with pride. I think Martin Luther King said it best. He said, if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets as Raphael painted pictures. Sweep streets as Michelangelo carved marble. Sweep streets as Beethoven composed music or Shakespeare wrote poetry. By that measure, my father, Clayton Rivers, was a true artist. You see, he didn't have a lofty position. He was the chief custodian at Douglas Aircraft for 25 years. And he took such pride and had such passion for that job that you would think that he was a virtuoso. He was also a World War II vet. Tom Brokaw said of that generation that it was the greatest generation. And it certainly was a great generation for me, as epitomized by my dad. I remember one Saturday when I was young, he invited me to come down to his place of employment, McDonnell Douglas. And he opened the doors, and I went to step into the hall and jumped back because it looked like the floors were burnished so black and the linoleum was glistening so that it looked like it was a long, dark hole that you could fall into. As he saw my reaction, he sheepishly said, "Oh, I came and polished that yesterday." He was a man that made you just understand that it was so important to lead your family, to be the type of person that not only your children could look up to, but they could emulate. I was very impressed by my dad and Clayton because he owned his own home. Now, let me tell you something. In those days, it was very unusual for an African American, or as a colored, as we were called then, to have that distinction. And here's the greatest emphasis: he paid for it cash. I don't know how many of us now have grander homes built of marble and stories, but not many of us can retire a mortgage before we have one. And he always carried himself with great pride. Wherever he went, he was dressed to the nines, but yet he had the humble touch. He could walk with kings, but still keep the common touch. He told me a story one day that as he was in his custodian's office, the chairman of Douglas Aircraft had a habit of stopping by and chatting with him. And he would discuss more than the weather. He would discuss how the stock market was going and what the workers felt about working under these hard conditions that sometimes were 24 hours long. The president of McDonnell Douglas would stop and confer with my father. And like I said, he was always dressed, and he cut such a dashing figure that as I talked to some of the people in his past, they would tell me some of the stories that had my mouth hanging open about how he was gracious to everyone. He never met a man or a woman he didn't like. He had an outstanding wit. I remember one day we were riding in the car somewhere around El Segundo, and this was a while ago. And he looked over and he saw a farmer out there working in this field. And he said, "That's a great man." I said, a great man, Dad, do you know him? He said, no, but he's outstanding in his field. I started to learn that my dad had a way of pulling your leg, but still giving you grains of wisdom. He was prophetic and thorough in teaching us the whereas and the ways of life. He used to look me in the eye sincerely and said, son, don't you ever forget that there is a God. Like I said, people that knew him in his younger days always talked about his bon vivant ways, his dashing appearance and his ready wit. They would say to me, your father was a pistol. I guess that makes me a son of a gun. I do know that the other day, Memorial Day, was the 25th year that I saluted his flag up over my mantle. And as I did, I took out his dog tags and I read Clayton Rivers, 38401-642. You see, he's numbered with the greats. And that's simply because he was a great father and a greater American. Mr. Toastmaster,